Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I couldn't let the stranglehold remark go by without pointing out that if we don't do something about allowing access to our critical minerals, we'll just substitute one stranglehold for another. And so I would strongly and suggest folks support this particular bill, which is at least trying to get us into and have access to those critical minerals that are absolutely essential for this transition that many across the aisle want to happen from gasoline to electric. I also want to point out one of the arguments that we hear consistently is that we need to get away from oil and gas and move over to something else. And I went through the same discussion back in Oregon, and I called out, just for the sake of maybe factual background, the number of internal combustion engines, motors in the United States, and it's 290 million. And to suggest that we're going to transition out quickly is to ignore that number. And so I think in Oregon, which has maybe 4 or 5 million cars, we now have 60,000 electric cars. The transition is going to take, if we started tomorrow, it would take 15 years. We didn't start tomorrow, we started some years ago. So the point is, we're going to have gas around a long time. So that brings me to something that's been left out of this conversation, perhaps by design, but in the Infrastructure Act, which before someone from across the aisle points out that I voted against it, I voted against it. I thought it could have been far better designed, and a lot of money in it's wasted. But it did contain something I think most of us would support, and that is $4.9 billion toward plugging some of these abandoned wells. And so that won't do the complete job, but it will at least take a step in that direction. Mr. Chair, finally, I just want to mention this thought that we're somehow going to flip this country and get away from creating CO2. We're not. And more to the point, even if we did, we still have 30 to 40 years before things on the environment front change. That seems to be ignored, and that what we should be doing, if we're talking about transition and adaptation, which we should be talking about, is how are we going to appropriately address issues like drought. And to that end, I just want to call out California once again, and we did yesterday, loudly saying, why aren't you trying to store some of the millions of gallons and hundreds of thousands of acre feet of water that are going to flood your Central Valley and not only be wasted, but will create huge amounts of damage while it's making that water's making its way unimpeded to the sea. Very sad. And I just want to say, Mr. Chair, that we should be spending lots of time talking about adaptation and not the mitigation, which in the long run, unless it's going to be copied by other countries on a way that means scale, does some good. And with that, I yield back.